What's going on? Welcome back, everybody, to the Submission Fishing Podcast. Hope you all are well. Running up on likely the last show of the year. It's already, man, I believe this year's already gone. December 19th is when we're recording this, so this will probably be the last one, but we'll be here for the new year. We got a good show for you guys today. We got the fan favorite, Kevin Nakata, regular guest, and Ethan Summers going to join us. He's got a lot of fishing knowledge and adventures that he goes on. He's got a great Instagram channel and YouTube presence as well. Great fisherman, and really looking forward to what he has to say, and just hearing some of his adventures and maybe some fishing tips, and we'll just see what he's got in store for us. So looking forward to having them on, and it'll be a good show. So without further ado, Kevin Nakata, how are you?
Good.
Ethan Summer, how you doing, man?
How's it going, guys?
Good. So Ethan, so it's my understanding, I found Ethan basically through Kevin. So Kevin was telling me, I was like, man, I need who should I reach out to for my show? And he's like, yeah, reach out to Ethan Summer, check out his Instagram. And, he's got a lot of good stuff going on. And apparently you fished with Kevin this summer, right? And you guys had connected together and did some fishing together. So it's super exciting. Tell us about that a little bit. How'd you guys meet and how'd that all work out?
So we actually got contacted through one of my good fishing buddies, John Hostalka, up here in the Chesapeake Bay. And I believe him and Kevin used to do Hobie kayak fishing trade shows together. And Kevin had just, moved down to Jacksonville. So we got connected through John. And then Kevin had invited me up to stay with him at his house for a few days and chase some redfish, on the backcountry, which I'm down in South Florida, so most of the seagrass in my area isn't too strong. So the redfish really aren't as prevalent as they are up in Jacksonville. So it was good for me to switch it up, and Kevin put me right on the fish, and it was a really, really fun 4 days. We fished, or it was 3 days, and we fished a flood tide and just way back in the marsh and just sight fish reds for 2 days straight. And it was a real fun time.
Where do you call home right now? Where are you living?
So I'm in the upper Chesapeake Bay. That's actually where I grew up. So I'm half in Florida, half up in Maryland. And so I've been going down to Fort Pierce, Florida is where I stay down there, mostly in the summer months. And I'll do a lot of tarp and snook down there. And then when I'm up in Maryland, it's mostly striped bass and bull redfish, puppy drum, snakehead, all sorts of things up here you can chase. And then I just got into the run and gun tuna fishing off the coast as well, which I've only gone twice, and we're 2 for 2. So,
Nice.
yeah, so it's really just, adventuring off, and I love to try new things and go after new species. And that's kind of, my mind goes all over the place with what I want to chase.
Right. That's awesome, man. That's a super cool story. So tell us, like, how'd you get started with because I know you got quite a bit of followers on Instagram for sure. I mean, you're up in like with a 30,000 range or something like that. That's pretty awesome. How'd you get into fishing, or how'd you start the channel, or what was like the genesis of that, or what was the inspiration behind it? Or did you grow up fishing, or are you just like, hey, I want to do some influencer stuff one day?
So my dad got me into fishing when I was probably like 3 or 4 years old. And my grandma, she always lived on the water on the Chesapeake Bay, so I go down there in the summers, and I started just catching little white perch off her pier for as long as I could remember through the summers. Did a lot of crabbing, just fishing growing up. And my dad was real big into bass fishing. Always did tournaments, and we always had a bass boat. So that's kind of how I got started. Through middle school, I'd hop on my bike and just ride to any piece of water around the house, and bass fish a bunch of ponds and things like that. And then as I got older, my family got a condo down in Florida in about 2016. And then when I saw that world down there, I was like just really hooked on just saltwater fishing in general. And that's mainly what I do now, is just all saltwater fishing. But yeah, my dad and my grandma is a big fisher woman too, and they both got me into it at a young age. And then my grandma bought me a Ascend fishing kayak when I was about 12. And it was just regular paddle kayak. I don't even know if they had pedal drive kayaks back then, but I used to fish on that thing out of her house just for white perch and stuff. And then I ended up buying a Hobie Pro Angler when I got into college. I think I've been really dedicated to kayak fishing for about 3 years now. And I started that Instagram account, Summertime Outdoors, in 2018. And I really just did it for fun, just, posting pictures here and there of just what I was doing when I was fishing. Because I played college basketball for 4 years during, that time I started
Nice.
that account. So I didn't have as much time to put into it as I do now. But this past year, I was like, kind of went all in on it and started posting, YouTube videos every week, started really working on filming and editing and things like that. And it's just, kind of just blown up this past, 6, 7 months. I started the year with 8,000 followers and now we're almost at 30K. So it's
Wow.
been just like a progression of, it doesn't happen in a day, building a big account like that. But if you stick with it, put the time in, and just, that ability to keep learning new things is kind of how I've grown it to being that big. But I would say my parents and my grandma really got me into fishing at a young age.
Nice.
Look how many rods he has in the background. In the corner over there.
How many you got? Where? Oh, and that I can barely see them.
And that's probably a quarter of what I have because I didn't even have enough room to bring all my rods back up from Florida, and I just got a deal with St. Croix Rods this past month, and they've been sending me a bunch of new ones. So I'm selling a bunch of rods, bringing new rods in. So
heck yeah,
I have way too much stuff.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, if you watch Ethan's videos, the biggest one I think that's launched you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is all your tarpon videos. It is insane how many crazy jumps you're getting on video, eats right next to your kayak. I mean, it's sick.
Yeah, so that is definitely my top fish to go after, especially on the kayak, because if you kayak fish, I'm sure Kevin knows, you're right on those fish. It's not like a boat, you're a little elevated, and when you're catching, species like tarpon where they're jumping like crazy, they're jumping in your kayak and things like that. The funny thing about tarpon is I've been fishing down in Florida since probably 2016 on the kayaks, and I had never even landed one over 50 pounds until this year. They'd always just kind of whoop me. I'd always see them rolling. And then this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to figure this fish out. If I don't catch anything all year, I don't care. But I ended up figuring it out, and I was on just the craziest bite of fishing I think I've ever figured out on my own my whole life. And that's really is kind of all I think about tarpon, really, for the most part.
So that's your fish. That's the fish you like the most.
Yeah, for sure. Those tuna are pretty freaking awesome. The bluefin. I have a couple crazy clips that'll be coming out pretty soon of them hitting lures like right next to the boat. But for me, big fish on a kayak is by far my favorite thing to do in the fishing world, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
In Jersey, did you get them on the kayak?
I mean, I've seen videos when the big bunker schools, the big bunker schools kind of come down Jersey in, early October. And I was still kind of, fishing up the coast and didn't get up there in time to get on the big adult schools of bunker. But I saw videos of 200-pound tuna, like within casting distance of the beach. But I mean, wow. I think you could probably mothership out there on a boat and throw the kayak in and do it. The thing is, those fish move so freaking fast, man. Like, it's hard to catch up to them on the boat. So you'd have to get real lucky on the kayak.
Oh, yeah.
How strong that ocean current is. And it would have to be like, God would have to put that thing right in front of you within casting distance. And just trying to lead those fish is so hard as well. But I want to catch a tuna on the kayak. That's definitely on the list.
I had my opportunity and I never did. Was it like 2 years ago? I have a YouTube video of it, and I was in a bluefin boil probably less than a mile from shore, and it was just like, it was insane. I basically floated through it in my kayak, and just the sound, and it was nuts, man. It was definitely an experience. And I was chucking a lure, but they wanted nothing to do with it, unfortunately. But yeah, I got one of those rare opportunities. That's definitely something else. So what are the East Coast tuna? I'm not real too familiar with that. So like Kevin, I moved out here to Jacksonville. Apparently I was talking to Kevin. So you've been to my house. I think you guys stayed here, right?
That was your house, Muto.
Yeah. So you guys, so apparently you've been to my house up here in Jacksonville,
Yeah, well,
which
thanks
is
for the
pretty cool. Yeah.
hospitality.
Yeah. So yeah, I just moved out here, but like we're pretty familiar with the bluefin. I don't know if they're totally different than East Coast but on the West Coast, that's what everybody fishes for. Seems like anymore. That's the big game fish out there for sure.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gotten more popular, especially with there's a couple Jersey guys that do it like religiously. That's all they do, and I think they have a pretty good yellowfin run. I'm not an expert on any of this
Oh
tuna
wow.
fishing whatsoever, but I know those guys. I see their posts. They catch yellowfin, all year, and then they do the bluefin. I think starting in around October when they start coming down from those further north states. But I saw
Mhm.
videos of that of them running gunning with the big spinning tackle, and I mean most people you would say troll for them, and I think Kevin was doing it on big skip spinning gear out on the West Coast. I think you guys do that out there too, but I think it's really become popular in New Jersey the last 2 years, and a lot of those guys have just kind of started to blow that kind of bite up, and
Nice.
there's a lot of fish out there. I mean, we saw first time we probably saw I don't even know how many tuna just breaching out of the water, but it was like straight out of a National Geographic
Wow.
movie for me. It's a very interesting fishery, and you definitely those guys know what they're doing. I mean, we might have got lucky twice. I don't really know, but it's definitely not as easy as it looks.
You guys
So
throwing artificials or live bait?
So we threw all artificials. So
Nice.
we're using sand eel imitations because that's what those fish are really on right now on the East Coast, from my understanding. And basically,
Nice.
how we tried to do it was my buddy would, full throttle once we see, birds working and try to get, down current of where those tuna are headed and try to cut them off. And then they'll kind of come to the boat. And then
Right.
we use 8-inch NLBN straight tails. And we also use a company called Ron Z,
mhm.
sand lures. And the Ron Z definitely has seemed to be the ticket for most of them. But we have caught a few on the NLBN straight tail as well.
the
Nice.
um the main thing about SoCal tuna fishing that's way different than the East Coast tuna fishing, in my opinion, seeing what I've seen through years of following guys like Sammy Gandor, who's really been, I think he's been a really huge influence up there in the Northeast. Salty water tackle. If you don't follow him, amazing. I mean, he does amazing stuff. Um, but the main difference between the East Coast and the West Coast, aside from this, they don't use spinning too much. They're actually kind of anti-spinner guys over there. They call them coffee
California.
grinders. They kind of just crap on everyone. It's just ridiculous, but it is what it is. But they use they try to cast talicas and try to get something a little bit more substantial, like a 25 or a 20 talica, or even like an accurate 600 size reel, because they want that leverage to be able to pull on fish. I've tried doing it with Tranks 500s. I've caught a lot of fish on Alexa 400, like up to 200 pounds, and it can do it, but it's just like they don't. It's what we do is we do a thing called railing, and so people call it whatever they want to call it, but we put the foregrip on the rail of a boat, and we use that as leverage, because on a spinning rod there's no leverage when you hook up to a fish except your back, like that's it, and your legs.
Yep.
Yeah.
The other thing that's different is you're talking about what, like 10 fish you're looking at a time.
Yeah.
Imagine 500 to 10,000 fish at one time blowing up in one little spot, and they're all big, like above 100 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's SoCal, and a lot of it all the time.
That's crazy, man. Like
Mm-hmm.
we were seeing, little wolf packs. I think the biggest group we probably saw was maybe 20, 30 fish or so. But yeah, definitely that on spinning gear, you cannot really get leverage. I mean, they are just doing that, death spin under the boat, and it just kills you. You do like we've probably average fight. We're probably using like I had an 8,000 Saragossa. My buddy has a 10,000 Penn Authority, which the Authority definitely does a way better job. But also my Saragossa probably needs to be serviced after all the tarpon. But I definitely think that, doing it on bigger gear is definitely the way to go if you're looking at that many fish. I think the big thing on the East Coast is kind of just a lot of guys troll for them. So I think the run and gun kind of fishing is like inshore guys like me. That's more fun of trying to get a cast in front of them than trolling
Yeah,
around.
for sure.
Can I present and show Ethan? I'm not sure you've ever seen a foamer before on YouTube, but I want to show you a video just to give you a little taste. Can I do that, Muto?
Yeah, of course.
Can I present that on my oh, I can share screen? Perfect.
Interesting gear.
Watch this. Like this is,
Damn it. Might have to do the surf siren. Look at them just rolling.
you see them all?
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh my God, dude.
Watch this.
That we should go.
Yeah, that's nuts.
That's insane.
There we go. There's one. Oh, you ate it right there. That was nuts. Mike, get up on the bow here. Get up on the bow.
And they're in a 14-foot Livingston.
So how far off the beach do they run out there?
He's swimming off.
This is 9 Mile Bank. So that
Turn it
was
on?
that's like 10 11 miles away.
Okay, that's about the same as what we were doing on the East Coast, but that's definitely way more fish in one spot than I've ever seen in the.
I didn't even get to the good part of the video yet, but I'll look for it while we talk about.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was like a small foamer.
Yeah, that wasn't even the real deal.
Although this year, I didn't really see too many foamers this year.
There was a lot less foam, yeah, this year. That was a lot of people's consensus. This was just like, oh, here, I found the concentration. So that's our buddy Brian Tim. Brian Tim's in Oceanside. He just fishes a lot, man. He's hardcore. I'm gonna share the screen again. Oh, can you see that? You can
Yep.
see that.
We're down there.
Look at this.
Get up
dude.
in there more. Yeah, we got to get in there. No, you got to
You
get
can
in there
follow
more.
him.
Dude,
It's
look
Brian
at that fooler
Tim.
down there. Get in there.
IMM on
Yeah, get into that one. Just run him over and go straight into it.
watch this, Ethan. You see it?
Yeah, you can already see them popping up.
Just go for it.
They're literally running fish over to get some more fish.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one.
That's crazy, man. That's insane.
I'm on.
Yeah,
I'm
I
on.
was gonna say that many fish. It's gotta be
God
automatic.
damn it, I'm off. No,
Like,
I'm
he
on.
just came off and now he's back on.
Yep, I'm on.
That's insane. That's so
Yeah, that's
crazy.
crazy. For those of you guys that are just listening to the podcast version, it was basically just showing a, I don't know, 50 yard by 50 yard probably space of bluefin tuna just foaming on the surface. It's crazy. Just eating that bait. That's awesome. So do you fish, you said you fish primarily saltwater. Are you like an all artificials guy? Do you use any bait? What's your philosophy on that sort of thing?
So if I can use artificial, I will, but I will use live bait. I think it kind of rounds people out as an angler if you can kind of diversify everything you do. I would say I'm probably like 80% artificial and then 20% live bait. I definitely use way more live bait when I'm down in Florida because those tarpon can be super, super tricky. And I have caught them on artificial, but a lot of guys do it at nighttime mostly. And for me, for filming and things, I like to fish during the day, especially in the summer months. Down in Florida, sometimes you kind of have to use live bait for those snook. And a lot of those big snook get pretty pressured in the Indian River Lagoon. So a big mullet and stuff sometimes just can't be beat, especially when you get out of, low light conditions. You have some really clear water. Those fish can be pretty picky. But I would say up here, I'm mostly all artificial when I'm in the Northeast. I have used live eels for striper in Connecticut before, but I'd say I'm mostly artificial. I don't say I would hate on any other guys if they use mostly live bait or artificial. I think everything has, its perks, and I think all fishing has some sort of skill to it. And yeah, I would say I kind of use a little bit of everything, but mostly I'll try to use artificial if I can.
What about snook? Like what are you fishing with for snook, and where are you fishing for snook? Mangroves, grass flats? Like, what are you doing? Are you doing inlets?
So I have dabbled into the inlets a little bit, and that's mostly night fishing. And I live real close to Fort Pierce Inlet, so I will fish that occasionally at nighttime with big heavy swim baits, and you're kind of just drifting that through the currents, and that's really fun. But usually, my favorite thing is being on the kayak and skipping docks and mangroves. And I actually have some right here. These are the Little Mullets by NLBN. And the thing with snook is the more frantic you can move your bait on the top of the water, which I always, when I first started going down, I would always use a topwater spook, which is a really good bait for them. But you can only work that so fast. And when I started using the little mullet, if you've ever seen videos of the mullet run or anything like that, of mullet kind of fleeing, they kind of just dart all over the surface, and it's just kind of a random motion. So that's kind of how I fish snook, is I skip this. If you can get a swim bait or anything that you can skip really far up, because they'll be as tight to structure as you can imagine. Because like I said, a lot of those seagrass flats that they used to hold on from many years ago, I have only been fishing there since 2016, so I didn't really get to see the Indian River Lagoon in its heyday on those fish really stacked up on any sort of grass flats in open water. But mostly what I'm fishing is structure, skipping whatever I can as far as I can in there. And their blowups are like very different from anything else you'll see. It's like a cinder block getting dropped in the water, and it's always when you least expect it to. They're definitely probably one of my second favorite fish to target down there.
The snook?
Yeah, snook. Tarpon's number one, but big snook, like snook that are over 30 inches, man, they're just so amazing. The way they hit lures and hunt things down, it's like they have that lateral line and any sort of vibration. And when they topwater is definitely the best way to do it. And they'll also hit those live mullet the same way they hit a topwater. It's more of like, I kind of like making those skip casts, and I've gotten pretty good at making pretty, I guess you could call it either stupid casts or good casts, because you can skip way up under those docks. And if you hook one, sometimes you just don't have a chance.
Yeah, you get wrapped up and that's it.
It's not very when I go out there and I'm skipping docks, and I'm going in areas where I've caught 40 plus inch snook, you probably hook 5 for every one, and I'll use pretty heavy stuff like a 7.6 medium heavy rod and maybe a 4,000 size reel, because you're throwing thousands of casts skipping, so you don't want something super heavy. Right. And you hook one, there's barnacles on all the pilings. Sometimes you got their leader shy, so you got to use 30-40 pound leader. And there's some bull sharks around there too that get pretty far up in the river. So getting in the water under the docks and stuff, and some of the water gets pretty dirty down south of where I'm at, and it's an adrenaline rush, and you get broke off a lot, but when you get one in, it's a really good feeling.
Yeah, hell yeah. Using fluorocarbon or mono?
I'm a big fluoro believer. I've used fluoro most of the time I'm down there, and it's definitely solid, for tarpon. I was using pink fluoro 60 pounds all summer, and I think that made a big difference, because I think that pink kind of disappears on that top 3-4 foot of the water column pretty well, compared to like mono or some things like that. But I have caught a lot of fish on mono. I'm not like, I'll use a little bit of whatever, but I did start to pay attention a little more this year with the tarpon, because their eyesight, if you ever seen a tarpon, their eyes are huge and they can see real well, and they're not stupid. So,
every advantage you can get.
Yeah, any little thing you can do to, hook a tarpon is pretty hard, and then trying to keep one on is even harder, and then landing one in a kayak is probably the hardest part, because they never want to give up, and they'll just keep. Once you get them into shallow water, because a lot of times in the kayak I got to get out with them in the water and try to get them unhooked and revived safely, because trying to grab them on the kayak is just a recipe for flipping in water. But they're and they'll tear your hands up. Like my hands are all torn up from the summer. And then I did buy fishing gloves eventually, but when I bought the gloves, I didn't catch anything after I bought them. So it's kind of just bad luck, I guess. But
that's funny. Yeah, from what I understand, I mean, I'm still new to this area, new to the tarpon game, but I know Kevin hooked one too, and it came off right. It was flying out of the water. I've seen your video.
I've
on
hooked a few
Instagram.
in your backyard, and it's hard to land them. It is very
what I
hard
hear.
to land them, especially when you use products that have like a heavy head in them. And it doesn't matter how thick the hook is, because when they shake their head, it's like no other fish can shake their head like that. Not on planet Earth. Like it's so violent in
And
comparison.
they're airborne. Yeah, so they're
airborne.
coming out of the water, shaking their head. Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
the thing with tarpon is they're not, fish will try to, like shake the hook out of their mouth. Tarpon are trying to rip that thing out of their mouth. Like they don't want that in there. And like Kevin said, that's why I'll use a lot of live crabs if there is a crab flush anywhere, in my area. And that's, if you can get those fish on crabs, like they do it a lot in, Boca and the West Coast, but it happens on the East Coast occasionally as well down there. I don't want to say any super specific locations, but it definitely happens. And if you can find those fish on crabs, I would say that's probably where you're going to hook the most fish. And that's why I prefer live bait when it comes to, tarpon, because once they eat it, all you have is whatever hook you have. And if you can get it in the roof of their mouth, anywhere else, they're going to fray you too. They have sandpaper mouths.
Right.
So if you're not in that top lip and your, top of your shank where your knot isn't exposed, like if your line is inside of their mouth, you only have a few minutes if they don't, throw the hook on the first jump, is when they usually get you, is the first jump.
Interesting. Is there any like hook regulations with tarpon? Because I know there's they're really strict about a lot of them. You can't even keep, right, and stuff like that. Is there no sometimes you can't use barbs or treble hooks? Is there any laws against that, or that you know?
I don't think there's any laws against what sort of hooks you can use. I've never heard of someone using treble hooks for tarpon. For crabs, I'll use a straight kind of an octopus style circle hook, just because when they eat a crab off the top, I like to set that hook as soon as I can. A lot of times I'll use 10 to 14-inch mullet, and I'll troll those around, and I'll have more of a traditional style circle hook for those, because I'll let them take that for a little bit, and sometimes you can get it right in the corner, which a circle hook does. Right. But I'll mostly using any 6.0 to mostly 6.0 circle hook, or that octopus style hook. But I know the big rule down in Florida is if they're over 40 inches, you can't bring them into the boat or all the way out of the water. So if you're not too familiar with tarpon fishing, if you do go down to Florida and do it, and you're doing it on your own, just make sure you're taking care of those fish, because they are they're big and they're strong, but when you pull a fish over 40 inches out of the water, when they're not in the water, they can't really support that amount of weight, and that can kill them. And I've seen guys kill fish before down there. So if you go down and do it, just make sure maybe watch a video on how to handle tarpon and things like that, because they are fun fish, but you got to kind of know how to take care of them when you do catch them.
Yeah, they I don't know about their growth rate or anything, but they definitely seem like they take a long time to get big. Yeah.
Yeah, I think most of those fish that are over 100 pounds got to be, I haven't really looked into it too much, but I think they got to be at least 20 to 40 years old, I would think. I don't think they're a real fast growing fish.
Yeah.
And they go from freaking 1 pound to 250 pounds, and they're just traveling all up and down the East Coast. They move a bunch. So,
and down to South America too.
So. Yeah, and I've seen, I think Black Tip H had a video where they caught one over maybe 300 pounds down there, which is just absolutely insane. And the rules down there are different. I think those guys can pull them out of the water and, kind of do whatever. But in Florida, there's definitely a group of fishermen that if you are, holding them up out of the water, all their body, they'll get after you on social media, like a lot of, fishing people will. But I would just make sure to take care of those fish if you do run into them.
Yeah, those guys, they're doing a lot to try to protect what they believe is, their I wouldn't say like their prize, but more of like they have an alliance with their fish. You know, they know how they work, what not to do, and they're trying to keep them around for as long as possible. So it may seem brutal sometimes when they're getting all on people, but I honestly think it keeps people honest more than anything, because you know who's gonna count on the fishing wildlife people to do everything to regulate this stuff. You have to have some kind of community, shaming, I guess is the word, to be able to make sure people don't do it, right? If you do it, you get a bad look on you, a bad rap. So
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy, you know.
right.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, on a lot of my videos, I get comments all the time like, you don't know how to bow or stuff like that. That's all kind of just like, just banter on there. But I definitely agree, like, when it comes to taking care of a fishery or like, holding fish with boga grips that can't be supported and stuff like that, I do think it's good for people to speak up about that, especially, I mean, I'm 23, but even the kids, younger than me that are coming up, this big social media craze of like, I want to be a, fishing influencer. I want all these followers, but there's a certain things that, isn't worth getting followers on Instagram. If that makes sense. Like, if you're just doing it to get followers, it's not, and you're not doing it because you really love the fish. I think that might be a little bit of a problem here in the future, but I think, older guys, getting on people saying like, don't do this, kind of the shaming thing where they're just keeping people in check, I guess you would say, is definitely good for the fishing community. I think social media is a double-edged sword. There's a lot of good opportunities from it, but I think there's a lot of people out there as well that kind of might do it for the wrong reasons, but you kind of have that in, anything that, you're going to do. But I think social media is a good thing. I think it gives people a lot of opportunities to meet new people and fish a lot more places that you probably would never even know about if it wasn't for social media. So there's definitely good things and bad things about it, but I think there's more good than bad, but there's definitely some things that could definitely get better.
Definitely. A lot of people, they just haters though too. It's like a lot of it's just jealousy. Like whenever you catch a big fish, there's always something wrong, right, with what you did or how you did it. It's just like a lot of people are just mad that they're not out there catching or they can't catch them. That's something I realized. I've heard like some of the comments people say like, "What are you even talking about, dude?" Especially if you catch a big fish and it's like, especially out here if you keep it, like a big fish, everyone's like, "Oh, you should have thrown that back." It's like they're not endangered or anything. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just that person would have kept it if they caught it. 100%. They just like to grief people for no reason. That's part of the game.
What I see on a lot of my videos, I get a lot of views. It'll just be like, if I post a video of a tarpon getting off, like 80% of the comments are going to be like, "You suck," or "You should have done this," or "You should have done that."
Yeah, that too.
I mean,
you need to check your drag. There's something. There's always like some armchair quarterback that's like he's like. They have no clue.
Ethan likes to fish a tight drag, though. I'll be honest. I've seen him.
I do
fish an extra tight drag.
Like Kevin's seen me, set the hook on redfish like a maniac, like a bass fisherman. And I have so many clips of my leader not just snapping, because my thing with sight fishing redfish is something that, for me, I get so excited when I see one. And then when I get one to eat, sometimes I just set the hook way too hard. And I'll blatantly admit it on my videos. I'm like, that's just horrible. Like, I don't know why I just did that, but I just get so into it, especially like if you're not running into reds like every 2 minutes, and it's like in that flood tide we only saw maybe 6 or 7 reds each, so you only have a certain amount of shots, and you're like, oh, here, this is going to be it, and then you mess it up and you're like, gosh, I can't get one today.
Well, I'll defend you. I also broke fish off during our trip, so you're not alone. You're not alone. Oh,
you were over dragging it too, or what?
Oh man, I use 10-pound braid. That'll be the last time I ever use 10-pound braid. He knows exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, I mean, just instant set, not even a heavy set,
just snap. Yeah.
I mean, me and Kevin fished together for 2 or 3 days, and we were already just kind of cracking jokes, making fun of each other. We kind of gelled right away when it came to fishing with each other. And like I would break one off from having my drag locked down for whatever reason why I would do that. And then Kevin was using like the 10-pound braid and he'd break off. And then it's just we get back to the house and we're just laughing about it. Like I can't believe we've both been fishing for so long, and you're always gonna mess up and screw things up. But
Oh yeah.
I think like if you went out there and stupid stuff like that didn't happen, it wouldn't even be fun. Like if it didn't take me 5 years to figure out how to even catch a tarpon, it wouldn't have felt as good.
No, you're on it. You catch them. How many tarpon did you hook throughout this year?
So
Really, that many?
it was probably, I would probably say over 75 tarpon.
Wow.
over the
Wow.
course of
Really?
summer. I had, my dad has a center console.
I thought you were gonna say like 5.
No, it was
That's a lot.
this summer.
75.
It was probably, I went out probably
Wow.
every single day for probably all of July and all of August.
Okay.
And then when I went to fish with Kevin was kind of when I started doing other, species, and the bite kind of, died off that I was on. But those fish were there. I think
2
I
months. That's still over 1 a day.
Yeah, I think I hooked
Yeah.
my first one at the end of June on my buddy's skiff. And then after that, I was like, I got to get one on the kayak. And then once I figured out one spot, then I'd find another spot that they were doing the same thing. And then it was kind of like it got crazy in, July and August. And then I had my whole family down for, a week or two. And my dad got a tarpon, my brother got a tarpon, my other brother got a tarpon, my best friend got a tarpon, my brother's girlfriend hooked a tarpon. I got every single person a tarpon while they were down there, which was pretty cool when you can dial in something and kind of just
Yeah. Heck
figure
yeah.
something out in a window. And it was really fun to figure those fish out this year.
Man, that's so awesome. That's a lot of fish, man.
Yeah, I think
So
the one YouTube video I have of me tarpon fishing, I think I might have hooked 11 that day, 10 or 11
Wow.
fish that day.
I'm gonna pull up your video because I think that we should show people on the YouTube when this gets
Yeah.
aired too.
Hell yeah.
There aren't many things on this spinning rock I love more than tarpon fishing. What you're about to see is the hottest tarpon bite I've ever found.
Look at that. That's insane.
That is nuts.
Look at that fish, dude.
Yeah, that was my biggest one I've ever
Welcome
caught.
back to Summertime Outdoors.
What's going on,
I'm
everyone?
gonna fast
As you
forward your
just
intro.
saw,
Look at this, Muta. Look at this.
Hook good.
Yeah, that's crazy. This
you
is South
can-
Florida.
yeah, you can see on the links there, it's just
Big
taking
head
water.
shakes.
It's just that kayak's super light, so they
Big
drag that
fish,
thing
man.
around pretty dang
Really,
easy.
really big fish. Heavy.
If
Heavy
for people
fish.
who are listening, Ethan is hooked up to a giant tarpon. Well, how big was this one?
I think this one is my PB. That one was probably 160 to 180 pounds.
Oh my god.
And I
And
was not expecting, I was mostly catching 100 to 120, 90 to 120 pound fish all summer. And I see fish this big in my area, but I didn't think I was ever going to hook one or even have the chance at landing one. It's funny because this fish, as soon as I grabbed his mouth on the shore, the hook just breaks in half. And so it just snapped right in half. So I definitely got a little lucky, but that thing whooped my butt for about 15 minutes or so.
when you first hooked up to that thing, it was literally pulling you like
Jesus God.
6 miles an hour, 7 miles an hour. Like you were throwing a wake.
Yeah. And I got lucky because you see there's a bunch of sailboats anchored up around there as well. And I'm lucky I didn't get any of those anchor lines or anything like that. But
Yeah, and then the whole other thing about this is now you're trying to land this thing on a kayak. It's literally next to your links. Like, I mean, not even a kayak. It's on a paddleboard with a seat on it. And
Look at that giant.
so you're gonna pedal them to shore. That's what your solution is.
yeah, so I try to get them into water where it's shallow enough for me to get in the water with them. Because just trying to grab a fish that big, and trying to get them in there is just too hard. But honestly, I think landing on a kayak, if you can get it to shallow water like this, is probably easier and safer than it is on a boat in like heavy current and stuff. And I mean, you can just see the size of that thing. That was the biggest
Jeez,
tarpon
dude.
I've ever seen right there.
Yeah,
But-
thank-
Unbelievable.
Well,
I mean, it is as
Biggest
big
weapon.
as you.
I think I've ever caught. And I'm not like not saying I'm jacked or big or anything, but I'm 6'4".
Yeah, you're
And
that's
tall.
pretty big.
that fish, was dwarfing me. So
Wow.
it was definitely probably my favorite. Other than the first one I landed on the kayak, the first big one I landed, I have a video of that as well on the YouTube. I have a bunch of tarpon fishing videos on there, but that one was definitely like I was on a bite for so long, and that was kind of like after I was that one, I was like, man, that was that one was special. And that was the second. That was like 10 minutes into fishing that day. The first cast hooked like a 100-pounder because I got it down to a science where I call it it was like a 48 to 55 minutes of a bite, and I would get out there as soon as it started, have my bait already set up, and that day it was just all the stars aligned that day. So it was definitely one of my favorite days of the year, and it's all I've been really thinking about since I've left Florida is getting back on that bite. Hopefully they're doing the same thing.
That's awesome. That's down in
So
South
where are
Florida.
you right now?
I'm in Upper Chesapeake Bay right now. So where I'm in my parents' house right now where I grew up,
What state?
Maryland.
Okay. And so you drive all the way down to Florida at least once a year, maybe more, right? And how are you able to what does that look like? Do you stop along the way? Do you sleep in parking lots? Are you picking a Chick-fil-A that you like and sleeping in their parking lot? Like what are you doing?
So a lot of times, like when I drive down, like I'm going down right after New Year's, I'm going to be down there for a month and a half, and then I'll come back up for the striper run up here in my home river. But most of the time I'll drive. I've driven straight through. If I have a buddy with me or something, I'll drive straight through and we'll just switch, on and off. But most times, sometimes I'll just grab a hotel in like Savannah, which is like a good probably 8-9 hours from my house. But it's straight shot down 95, and then I get off 95, and it's a 20-minute drive to the condo. But when I came back up, I filmed what I called the East Coast tour this year. So I fished all up 95 from Florida all the way back home. So I stopped Mosquito Lagoon, I hit Jacksonville again, and then I hit Charleston, and then I hit
Epic.
Yep. And then I hit the Outer Banks, and then I fished Virginia Beach, and then I came home. And I mostly just slept in my truck in a parking lot somewhere throughout that trip because I don't have the money to get a hotel for every night. But yeah, I think in Jacksonville I slept in a church parking lot. Charleston I slept in a Wawa parking lot. So I mean, just throw the seat back, and I was only probably sleeping maybe 3-4 hours every night. And I don't
young
drink
man's game right there.
That is,
That is a
yeah.
young man's
I
game.
don't drink coffee or nothing. So I don't really. It was more just like when I drive. I've never fished Charleston before. Never fished the Outer Banks before. I fished Virginia Beach a decent amount, but just going to new places, just kind of my brain's wired to like, I just got to make it there. If I can get
Right.
2-3 hours and get out there and start catching some fish, I'll forget that I'm even tired. So it definitely was probably my favorite. I think it was about a week. I just, slept in the truck and stopped on the way up. But that was so fun. And Charleston was amazing. I found an insane flood tide bite, which from you showed me, Kevin, in Jacksonville. It's like once I got up there, it was a little bit easier to figure out, where fish would be. And it took me a good, 5 hours of looking back there, and I almost got
You
stuck.
found him though.
Yeah.
You found him. That was sick.
Once I found them, and they were willing, and they were not spooky at all. And I don't know if that was just, maybe, dumb luck that I found them at the right, bite window, but it was kind of the same bite window of the tides that we found in Jacksonville. And I found that to be similar in Virginia Beach too, as well. I think a lot of those East Coast redfish kind of operate on the same timetable when it comes to tides and everything. So just taking, little pieces of information that you've learned from other places and then just look on the maps and, try to, ask a few guys, maybe message them of kind of what tactics for time of year. But I would say just traveling and figuring things out on your own is probably my favorite part about, fishing, is figuring it out. I'm not a big, message someone like give me a spot. Like Kevin invited me to come fish with him and he showed me a really awesome spot. But as for like Charleston and stuff like that, it's kind of ask a guy, like give me a general area on the somewhere
Right.
that's good, and or maybe just where's a few launch points, and then that's kind of all I really ask of people. Like I get messages all the time, where did you catch that tarpon? I'm like, not
Yeah.
even.
People want to know exactly where you were.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like if someone approaches me, like Kevin was like, knew a buddy of mine, and he approached me as like someone that just wanted to get to know me and get out and fish. But I'm never gonna respond to someone that's just like, give me your spot.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
when you put the time in to figure something out. Like it took me 5 years to figure out how to catch tarpon, where I stay at. It's like, and then I'm not just gonna give it out, to everybody. I'm sure if you, watch a video, you can figure most of it out from a video. But for the most part, I think that's my favorite part of fishing, is just exploring new places and figuring things out. And if I can get out and fish with someone that's in that area. And the great thing about kayak fishing, I think, is you're not stuck on the same boat as someone else, to where like if everyone fishes, different. And like that's just like me and Kevin like got back in there, and then he kind of showed me how he does it, and then we kind of split off and kind of do our own thing. And that's probably my favorite part about kayak fishing, because I feel like when you're on a boat with someone else, you're always want to go and do and try different things. And on the kayaks, you can get with a group of people, you can all go out, fish your own way, have your own space out there, call each other when you kind of start to figure things out. And that's kind of why I like kayak fishing a lot too. And especially like if you have a boat, you always got people like, take me on your boat. With kayak fishing, it's like you got a kayak, I got a kayak. You can, we can go and do things with each other. So I also like the kayak fishing just from like pedaling standpoint, keeps you in shape, just keeps you moving. And that's probably my favorite part about it. Just being that close to big fish too, like this tarpon jumping. There is no adrenaline rush like that, other than probably shooting a big buck with a bow at like 10 yards. I would say is probably the biggest adrenaline rush that I've experienced. But that kayak fishing for big fish for me is at the top of the list.
That's awesome. Well, yeah. Hey, at least next time when you're in Jacksonville, you got a place to stay. So come on by. And I moved in now. We got spread rooms and we got 3 Hobies. I brought my boat, so we're ready to go.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna.
You don't have to drive all the way through. You can stop in and at least stay a night here if you need to.
Yeah, definitely. Jacksonville was awesome, man. I want to figure the bull reds out there. But that stuff that Kevin showed me was pretty epic.
Mike probably hooked into one a couple how many days, like a week ago now, 2 weeks ago.
When I first got here, I took my kayak under the bridge and I was slow pitch jigging. And I hooked into, and again, I was on 15-pound braid. And I tried babying this thing too, but it was just it's almost spooled me. I fought it for like 5 minutes and it finally broke off, but I was trying to baby it. My drag was light, but I was just way undergun, but yeah.
And it didn't jump. It wasn't tarpon.
I never saw it. Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Those redfish throw down, man. You get those big fish, even those small. I mean, you guys know from being in Jacksonville, any size red, they all rip drag, and they're so much fun. The bull reds in the Chesapeake, they throw down, man. They're pretty.
Do you have any pictures that on your computer that you can screen share? The big reds in Chesapeake?
I think I do, but I don't have any on my computer.
Okay.
But I have them on my phone. I'm sure if you pulled my Instagram up, you could see it way back in there. I have a video on my YouTube as well
Nice.
of a pretty insane day of kayak bull red fishing. I think I was fishing with me and 4 or 5 of my kayak buddies up here, and I think we caught over 60 in one day, and they were all 45 to 55-inch fish. I think the average bull red,
Chesapeake?
yeah, the Chesapeake, probably the
Wow.
average bull red. I really only started targeting the bulls, this past year, and that's only thanks to John Hostalka, who I mentioned earlier, that connected me and Kevin. I mean, he kind of took me under his wing with that and just showed me some general areas on where to go and showed me how he does it. And that guy knows those bull reds like the back of his hand, and he's a
I'll have to
beast.
get John on the show.
Yeah, he's probably one of the best kayak fishermen that I've fished with.
Some high praise. How do you like the links, by the way?
I like the links a lot. I would
I have
say
a PA, but it's like sometimes that thing's such a monster to get in and out of the water.
I
And
have a
I see the
Pro-Am.
links and I'm like, that looks pretty nice.
Yeah, so the links I love, but I mean, we had a pretty windy day in Jacksonville, and the thing it gets pushed around just super easily.
You sit
So
so
that,
high.
and then when you have chop out there, it's annoying. But when you're loading that thing up, and when sometimes I'm launching in Florida, I got to go through 100 yards of mangroves or
Right.
go out launch off the beach or something. You can really drag that thing around and move it around very easily without too much worry. And I like it because you can't take that much stuff, and sometimes when I take the PA, I take way more than I need, and that just makes the thing even heavier. So
Yeah.
I love the links. I tell people this all the time. I love it for backcountry stuff. If you can get out of the wind, shallow water, love it. But if you're fishing mostly open water, if you want to do camping trips on a kayak or something, I would definitely go with an Outback or a Pro Angler where you have more storage, more stability, and you can handle big water better. But I've been out in the links in some pretty gnarly stuff, and it's a little sketchy. It can handle it. You're just gonna get really wet.
I got your Instagram here, screen sharing. Can you send that, or can you put me up there, Muto?
Yeah. What's up?
Look at that thing, dude.
Yeah,
that's nuts.
Yeah, that thing was definitely over 50. I didn't get a very accurate measure on that thing, so I'm not gonna say a specific thing, but that thing was massive.
Yeah, this is Chesapeake Bay, right?
Yep, that's the Chesapeake right there. That's the one on right there is all 4 of those are Chesapeake Bay.
Wow.
And those things, once you find them, once you find the school, man, and you throw a swim bait in there, if they're not, moving super fast, you can get on them super good. It's more of just the challenge of finding them. But those are all Chesapeake Reds right there.
Wow. That's insane. This right here too, this one?
Yep, that's also Chesapeake Red right there. That was my first fish on the links.
Wow.
It's pretty impressive.
That's loaded, man. Crazy.
That is crazy. Awesome. Well, Ethan, I don't want to keep you too much longer. We'll roll it up. Man, I really appreciate you having on. I'm looking forward to fishing with you in the future. Next time you're in Jacksonville, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, I'm headed down there, in 2.5 weeks or so. So I'll
Hit
shoot
us up,
you a message, and maybe on my way down, I'll just stop in there and we'll fish for a day or something like that.
Yeah, we'll even meet you somewhere if you want, or
Yeah.
So what do you have?
Hopefully we get some grouper and some snapper fishing in. So
yeah, we could take the boat out.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'm very intrigued about offshore stuff down there. I've done it on my dad's boat. We've done some mahi, some sailfish stuff, but that grouper fishing and snapper fishing, jigging for them looks super fun.
Yeah. So where can people find you? What's your Instagram? What's your YouTube?
So everything that you can find me on is Summertime Outdoors. You see my last name is Summer, so it's spelled with the O, so it'll be Summertime Outdoors. A lot of times I just tell people to search my name, Ethan Summer. And I target, every inshore species that you can get after on the East Coast. And I do it all from the kayak. and I post, pretty consistently YouTube videos every Wednesday at 5:30, and then
Nice.
Instagram. I'm posting on there maybe 3 times a week. So, yeah, give me a follow, and I'll be
Definitely.
posting some pretty awesome stuff, and hopefully I can get on those tarpon again, which I think I can do it again this summer, and I'm super excited for that. But I appreciate you guys having me on the show, and I love
Yeah,
talking.
definitely.
So
was
anytime.
great. Kevin,
Yeah,
what do you
man.
got? What do you got, Kevin? Where can we find you? What do you got? What do you got going on?
Oh, no, just go buy some submission jigs at any one of the dealers that we put you in. That would be great. So
Yeah, there you
that's
go.
my spiel. Go and support your local tackle shops.
Go get your black belt in fishing.
Help us stay afloat on the submission boat out here.
Hey, I can't argue with that. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And Ethan, thank you. Kevin, it's been great. And yeah, guys, like Kevin said, you could find us at your local tackle stores. If they don't have the submission jigs, tell them you guys want them, and hopefully you guys had a great year. I had a great year, lots of change, lots of different stuff, lots of different fish. But it's been awesome as always. And just getting closer to that black belt in fishing. All right, guys. See you next week. Oos.
Oos.
Actually, see you next year. Later.